grew up in a small town on the west coast in a conservative Christian family. I think by the time I got to high school, I realized that there was something different about me. By that time, the teasing and the bullying had started. Of course, it was more verbal than physical. I think the one incident that stood out to me was when I got into class one day after break and I found a little note on my table saying, "Please phone Captain Gaystop." And then to find out days later that it was from someone who I'd considered a very close friend actually just hurt that much more. You try so hard just to show that it doesn't affect you and that you're not bothered, but deep down it really does hurt. And I think even though I realized by that point that something was different, I just so badly wanted to be accepted by my peers, and I tried so hard to show everyone that I was a normal guy just like all the others. I think I actually set out to find a girlfriend just to prove everyone wrong. Of course, it never quite works out like that, and I think that's why I never did have a girlfriend during high school. After high school, I started working and doing my degree full-time after hours, so there wasn't much time for the personal life and for a social life and going out. I think I was about 21 years old before the first openly gay couple moved into town, and of course it was mixed reactions. The people who actually took time to get to know them and got to deal with them on a daily basis absolutely adored them, and the others who just knew them by name couldn't really be bothered. So once I finished my degree, by the age of 25, I finally moved out to Cape Town. Of course, being 25 and moving into the big city, I didn't really know anyone and I didn't really have a lot of friends. So I turned to social media. I started interacting with a lot of people, some of them straight, some of them gay. I did interact with some gay guys that would flirt occasionally, and I would flirt back. I didn't really see the harm in it. I thought at that point, you know what, I'm mature enough, I'm comfortable with my sexuality, it's a game, it's nothing serious. Until one day, one of the guys sent me a message asking me whether I was in fact gay, which I then denied, of course. And he apologized, saying that it just seemed like I was always so flirty and into the guys. And I think that actually made me question what exactly I was doing, what my intention was, and I really had to take a hard look at my life up to that point. And I think it's then that it hit me, and I finally had to make peace with the fact that I was gay and that I did like guys. Up until that point, I had just written it off as, being able to acknowledge the fact that another guy was attractive. But I finally had to make peace with the fact that I also had an attraction to guys. I was 27 at the time. I remember sitting on my bedroom floor that first night and just absolutely bawling my eyes out, not knowing what the next step was, where I was going to go, what I was going to do. The first person I came out to was a guy I had met through social media. His name's Rhett. And I sent him a message saying, "Listen here, I've got something to share, I need someone to talk to." And I told him that I'm gay, and he was just gentle in the way that he approached it, and so encouraging, so supportive. And he shared his own experience. He checked up on me in the days that followed, and I think a lot of the other guys on social media also picked up that something wasn't quite right, and another 3 guys also reached out to me, also sharing their own stories, and that actually helped me a lot in those first couple of days and just making my own peace. After I'd made peace with my own sexuality, I started quite small. I started telling close friends, and I knew that I would eventually have to branch out and tell my family, but I also knew that it wasn't going to be easy. Luckily, my friends were all very supportive. I didn't have one negative experience. It took me roughly 6 months after I first came out to actually tell my parents. We were away on holiday, and I just realized over the course of that weekend that if I didn't tell them there and then, it might never happen. So I sat them down one night. I was at a complete loss for words. I just didn't know how to start the conversation, and eventually I just blurted it out and said, I'm gay. I don't think I'll ever forget the look of shock and hurt in my mother's eyes when I first uttered those words. I didn't know what to say after that, and I remember my dad reaching out and taking my hand and telling me that he knew it wasn't my fault and that everything was going to be okay. And I think after that it pretty much went through phases. There were times where she would have a lot of questions, and then there were times that I would just get the silent treatment. And there were times she would say stuff like, can't you go and see somebody? Can't you go and speak to someone? How do you know you're not interested in girls? You never dated a girl. You've just been on your own for so long. How do you know? And I tried my best to reassure her and explain to her that I was secure in who I was. After that, I spent time with my folks on and off, and there were good days and there were bad days. And I think my mom was also going through a very hard time at that time. Whenever she was having a bad day, it seemed like it would always come back to the fact that I was gay. I remember chatting to my mom on the phone one night, and she said to me, can't you change your lifestyle? And I said to her, but it's not a lifestyle, it's who I am. And I said to her, do you really think because of this one statement that I made, this one fact that I've now acknowledged that I'm no longer a good person? And she said, I don't know. And I think that hurt more than anything else. At the age of 27, to have someone who'd known you your whole life all of a sudden question your entire existence. That hit me really hard, and I remember my friend Jacques was chatting to me at the time, and he said to me, just remember that it took you quite a long time to make peace with your sexuality. You can't expect them to accept it overnight. But what you do need to remember is that you have now told them, and it is now their issue. It is no longer your issue. They need to make peace with it. And I think that's probably the best piece of advice that anyone ever gave me. Over the course of the next 6 months, we had our ups, we had our downs. I think things slowly started getting better. I also started dating someone, and although I was quite hesitant about telling my folks about that, they found out by chance, and I think I was relieved in a sense because I didn't have to hide it anymore. And I think that's the point where we reached that turning point, and I could see a change in the way that my mother reacted. And I think she finally realized that I was able to have honest, loving relationship, and that I was still the same person. What I will say is coming out has probably been one of the hardest things that I've ever done in my life, but it was also one of the best decisions I could have made for myself. Finally being able to live my authentic life has been absolutely amazing. I'm that much happier. I'm looking forward to the future and what it holds. I think now, looking back at 33, my parents have both come such a long way. I can see it in the way that they reacted when I introduced James to them and the way that they treat him. And I think it'll always be hard for a parent. I think at the end of the day, all that your parents really want is for you to be happy and for you to have a long, good life. Obviously, everyone's experience is different. If you are struggling with your sexuality and you have yet to come out, all I can say to you is that coming out is having a huge burden lifted from your shoulders. But I also do understand that it's not that easy for everyone. You need to be in a position where you feel safe and you feel secure before you do tell your family. And I think to that end, it is important to have friends and colleagues, people that you can rely on and people that are going to be there for you in case things maybe don't go that well. I hope in sharing this you've gotten to know me a little bit better. And yes, I guess all I want wanted to say is that it does get better. It does get so much better.